We're all told that the key to a good life is this constant pursuit of happiness. But what if that's completely backward? Today, we're going to dig into Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which makes a pretty radical claim that our relentless chase for positivity might be the very thing making us miserable.
It's a huge paradox, right? This is the central question the book really dives into. Why does that constant pressure to feel good all the time often leave us feeling, well, worse than when we started? Let's unpack that.
So, to get started, we have to understand something the book calls the happiness trap. It's this whole cultural obsession we have with being positive 24/7 that, as you're about to see, kind of sets us up for failure.
I mean, just think about that for a second. The moment you start desperately wanting to be happy, you're basically sending a message to your own brain that you aren't happy. And focusing on what you lack just makes that feeling of frustration even worse.
And this is what creates a vicious cycle that Manson has a great name for, the feedback loop from hell. It's this sneaky psychological trap that so many of us fall into without even noticing.
Okay, so here's how this feedback loop works, and it's actually super simple. It starts with a totally normal feeling, let's say anxiety. But then our culture of good vibes only kicks in, telling us we shouldn't feel anxious. So what happens? We get anxious about being anxious. Or we get angry about being angry. We're essentially layering a second negative judgment right on top of a natural human feeling, and that's when the spiral really begins. So if chasing positivity is the problem, what's the solution? Well, this brings us to the book's most famous and probably most misunderstood concept, the true art of indifference. And I'm telling you, it's probably not what you think.
This right here is the biggest misconception about the entire book. Not giving a fuck doesn't mean being some cold, emotionless robot. It's actually the opposite. It's about consciously choosing to save your energy, your fucks, only for the things that genuinely matter to you. Just think about this trade-off for a second. Some people care about everything. The rude person at the store, the bad weather, some random comment online. All their energy is just scattered and wasted. The alternative is to choose your battles. You learn to let the small stuff slide so you can pour all that saved energy into what really counts: your family, your work, your core values.
The book lays out 3 key ideas here. First, like we just said, indifference is really about focus. Second, you can only ignore the small stuff if you care about something more important. A greater purpose makes little problems feel irrelevant. And the third point is a real wake-up call. You're already choosing what to care about every single day. The only question is, are you doing it consciously? And all of this builds up to the book's absolute core piece of advice. If life is guaranteed to have problems, and it is, then the goal can't be to avoid them. The goal has to be to choose them. This is a massive mindset shift. Happiness isn't found in some fantasy life with 0 problems. That doesn't exist. Real, lasting satisfaction comes from the process of solving problems you actually care about. The joy is in the climb, not just standing at the top. Look, everyone has problems. The person who loves going to the gym has the problem of being sore. The startup founder has the problem of working crazy hours. These are good problems because they're chosen in service of something bigger. The goal, then, is to trade your bad, meaningless problems for better, more meaningful ones. So, how do you choose good problems? Well, you start by choosing good values. The book argues that bad values, things like pleasure or material success, are often external and totally outside of our control. They just create shallow problems. But good values, things like honesty or creativity, are internal. They're about the process, they're completely within our control, and they lead to the kinds of meaningful struggles that actually help us grow as people. All right, so how do we actually put this stuff into practice? It really all comes down to one thing: mastering what you accept and, maybe even more importantly, what you reject. This is the practical, day-to-day application of indifference. Every single time you say no to something, an invitation you don't want to go to, a pointless argument, a goal that isn't really yours, you're freeing up time and energy. You're creating the space to say a big, powerful yes to the people and the projects that actually line up with your chosen values. And this gets to the very heart of your identity. What you choose to reject is just as important as what you choose to accept. Setting boundaries isn't about being mean or selfish. It's an act of self-respect. It's how you define who you are based on what truly, genuinely matters to you. And that leaves us with this final, really powerful question.
If struggle is inevitable, and if real satisfaction comes from solving the problems we care about, then what struggle are you choosing? What good problem are you willing to take on today to build a more meaningful life? That right there is the subtle art of not giving a fuck.